Well, ladies and gents, we've got early box office news. This is Sony's animated Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And obviously it had a Thursday night previews. It'll go into essentially a 4-day weekend. But it's doing really well, actually. Much better than I thought it was going to do. And the reason why I say that, not that I thought this was going to do bad, is just that it's doing pretty damn well. Even, I would say, even sort of adjusted for inflation and things like that, it's doing pretty damn well. Not staggeringly high numbers, but even adjusted for inflation, better than I would have thought. So it seems that like sort of hype that we experienced around Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because that film has so much sort of hype surrounding it that you'd think it was a $1 billion film. It's not. It didn't do massive numbers. It did well enough and it earned good profit, but it didn't, cold hard cash, wasn't huge numbers. But that hype seems to be crossing over to this movie doing very, very well, which is good. This is good stuff. And funnily enough, of course, this will see The Little Mermaid knocked off the top spot instantaneously. So, this is an exclusive to Deadline, that's why I'm looking at this article. Sony Animation's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is doing some serious business tonight, according to box office sources. So this was Thursday. It accumulated $16 million off of previews on a Thursday. That's 3 p.m. And from 3 p.m. And it was only on 3,500 screens. That's really good. That is very, very, very good. Now that's the second best preview night ever for an animated movie, after Disney Pixar's Incredibles 2, which did 18.5 million. That was in 2018, so adjusted for inflation even more than that, obviously now. And Disney Pixar's Toy Story 4, which did 12 million. So now this is the third best animated movie. Well, Toy Story 4, is the third best animated movie in previews at the domestic box office. It's doing really, really well. Now, how that stacks up against Into the Spider-Verse, the preview cash for Across the Spider-Verse is 4.5 times more than what the first 2018 animated movie did. So this is what I mean. That hype, that cold, hard hype that people have sort of experienced surrounding this film, Into the Spider-Verse, is now crossing over into Across the Spider-Verse. So Into the Spider-Verse, on its Thursday night, only did 3.5 million. And then it did a $12.6 million Friday and a $35.3 million 3-day opening. So it'll be really interesting to see how this crosses over. I wouldn't be surprised if this crosses 50, I don't know, maybe even $60 million across this weekend. I would imagine so. Easy. 60 million, probably. Now, they say down here that their projections are going to be $75 to $90 million. Maybe. That's high. But maybe. I mean, this is doing really, really, really well. And you stack this up against the Disney movie Elemental, which is set to hit $40 million opening weekend. I mean, it's bad, isn't it? That's embarrassing. When you have this movie coming out, Sony, of all companies, Amy Pascal, Avi Arad, Sony. Now, I like Sony, don't get me wrong, but their comics division, their comic side of stuff, as producers are less to be desired. But they're doing really well with this. This is absolutely ballooning. So here's what it says. Now the question remains how front-loaded Across the Spider-Verse is. Hence, it's too early to comp it to Incredibles 2. That Pixar sequel wound up posting a $71.2 million first day. 26% of that number from Thursday previews. Incredibles 2 owns the opening weekend record for an animated movie at $182.6 million. Opening stateside projections are wild for Across the Spider-Verse, ranging from $75 to $90 million. I mean, I'd say I don't know, is that accurate? Maybe, probably. This is really doing well. Even on the low end, Across the Spider-Verse's 3-day will be more than double the First Pick's opening weekend. And that's still commendable. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. What makes the sequel's box office hard to sort of narrow down is it's a Marvel animated movie, which is a rare breed. It's a Sony Marvel animated movie. Not to mention, it's one of the longest running animated films of all time. That's the thing which is surprising here. It's got a really long runtime, 140 minutes. That's a really long runtime. I thought that would hinder it massively. Among those animated movies with long runtimes, Across the Spider-Verse ties with Funimation Kyoto's Animation's Violent Evergarden in 7th place. The animated pick with the longest runtime is Sunao Katabuchi's In This Corner, and Other Corners of the World at 168 minutes. So, this is the other thing, right? You've got 95% Rotten Tomatoes. That's the critics, and then you've got Rotten Tomato audience giving it 97%. I mean, it's doing really, really, really well. Really well. Now, this is the other interesting thing, which I think is hilarious. Like, genuinely funny. So this film, when compared to other live-action Spider-Verse properties, beats the preview night cash for Spider-Man Homecoming, 15.4. Technically it doesn't though, because of course adjusted for inflation it wouldn't. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, 11.6. Probably, I would imagine still sort of beats that. Venom, 10 million. And Spider-Man 3, $10 million. Some of them it doesn't actually beat if you adjust it for inflation. But it's still doing staggeringly well. You know, and you've got Disney just floundering. Elemental set to hit $40 million for the entire weekend. And this has done $16 million just off of previews. That's so good. It goes to show there's a hunger for this type of film. I am surprised to a degree because I thought people were going to be a bit tired of this sort of animation style. Because we've had like a pretty big influx of this animation style since Into the Spider-Verse happened. So, you know, it could have gone either way. People could have been a bit tired of it, but apparently not. People just absolutely lapping this up. And good for it, you know. I watched Into the Spider-Verse. It was a pretty good film. It was fine. I had a good time with it. I haven't watched it since, but I had a good time with it. And Across the Spider-Verse is supposedly pretty good as well. And is going to lead off into another movie as well. So it's going to be a trilogy, and then obviously go into a live-action Miles Morales movie. So this is all very interesting, but it's the turning tide against Disney. You know, they used to own family entertainment, animation entertainment stuff, but they're just floundering, gone, done. And I would be surprised if this movie doesn't take the top spot. And you'll see The Little Mermaid come crashing down for this weekend. Based off these numbers. These numbers are great. You know, $16 million for a Thursday. Wow. So let me know what you think down below. Cheers, guys. Take care.